Welcome back to the AM show. Well, you had the finance minister there delivering the budget in Parliament. Isaac Kofi is with our research desk, and he joins me with some breakdown of the budget. Kofi?
Yeah.
So the minister has presented a budget. What have we been able to gather from it?
Well, so first of all, let me start with what we are hoping to spend in probably 2024, and then what we are hoping to generate as well. Because what the minister read in Parliament yesterday is what we call, so the budget comes in three forms, Kojo. It comes in, the first form is a speech, which the minister reads in Parliament. Then we also have the highlights. That gives us more or less like a summary of what is supposed to happen in that year. So you look at the revenue aspects, you look at the expenditure aspects, and other, constants. Then you have the main budget statement and economic policy. That is where probably we are all waiting for. That's where the meat is, the detail of what will happen in 2020.
Is that what will be presented to Parliament?
So what the minister does a speech. But Parliament will have access to the budget.
Exactly, yeah.
With all the appendices and all of those things. So what we are learning is that in 2024, government is actually going to base its external sector outlook on the debt restructuring at the external level. And the finance minister said the performance of our external sector will actually depend heavily on the debt restructuring that we are doing at the external level. To stabilize the CD in 2024, we are going to depend on, key items like the gold for oil deal. We are also going to rely on the IMF support, and then also other supports from that will bring in dollars in 2024. And this is actually, if you can go back, what everybody is talking about. So the minister says that I want to stress at this juncture that Ghana has paid its dues, has turned the corner, and getting back on track.
Okay.
And if you say you've turned the corner, it comes in different forms. So the finance minister spoke about inflation yesterday, spoke about the fact that we are slowing down in terms of expenditure, and we are hoping to get more. The CD is not depreciating like the way it depreciated, the same period in 2022. So that's what the finance minister means when he says that we've turned the corner. But we have some 10 key takeaways that I want us to go through. So first one you made mention of is the construction of the General Hospital. Very, very important. It's found its way into the budget yesterday. And the finance minister said that financing has been secured, funding will be provided through the national budget, and the contractor, it says, will resume work next week.
When in next week? Okay, well,
next week
from Monday, we would have our reporters there. We would have to check every day to see whether or not the contractor is on site or not. So from Monday, we'll be there.
Then the second one is the sanitary pad tax. Very, very important. We've been talking about this for a while. The fact that now if you are a lady, every month you need to save up about some 50 CDs to now afford a sanitary pad and all of those things. Very high. The government is saying they are doing something about it. They have these taxes that they are considering in 2024. There will be a 0% VAT rate and import duty waivers for raw materials or locally manufactured sanitary pads, and that will be implemented in 2024.
Now, Kofi, but just before we move on, let me acknowledge the presence of our guest, Dr. Michael Ayamga. He is a development economist and senior lecturer at the University for Development Studies. Doc, good morning and thank you.
Good morning, President. Pleasure to be with you.
Great. We also have Charles Nyaba. He is head of programs and advocacy at Peasant Farmers Association of Ghana. Charles, good morning. Okay. Charles, kindly unmute so we can hear you. I saw you on there, and I know you are there. Great.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good morning. Let me say good morning to my good brother, Michael,
Yeah.
and your good self. It's been a while.
Now,
Well, I'm fine.
Okay, guys, thank you so much. So I'll come back to you shortly, but we want to share the bit that we've picked from the budget with our viewers, and then we'll come to you. So yes, Kofi.
Now let's go to the figures proper. I want us
Okay.
to now look at the figures and look at how.
But have we finished with the 10 key points?
The 10 key points. Okay, we can still go back to the 10 key points. We can just run through. The third one is the Akosombo Dam spillage, where
220 million
has been made available. There's also the African print industry that will also enjoy some VAT, a 0% VAT for the next 2 years. The fifth one is the night economy, where government is hoping to cash in on that one and also promote public-private sector partnership. There will be the DDP. The government says DDP has been concluded.
Yeah.
Simply tells you that we are done with the DDP, and what we are hoping now to do is to go ahead with the external debt restructuring. Our external sector, just like I said, the finance minister said, number 7, it says the external sector's performance hinges on negotiations with external creditors, an IMF-supported program, and cocoa syndicated loan, continuation of gold for oil program, and mining inflows, and the second tranche of the IMF. That will be how the things we are going to use to, consolidate our external sector in 2024. There's also the financial sector support. We've spoken about NIB and other financial institutions in distress. Government saying they're going to provide some $4 billion as support. The 9th one,
I think here there should be more explanation because we know what happened with the cleanup. We should be giving more explanation.
Exactly,
in terms of how
especially when we know there's supposed to be a banking sector recapitalization plan and all of those things. The 9th one is the international funding support. So government is actually anticipating that probably by the end of this year, they should get some $2 billion from the IMF World Bank support, and then also the cocoa syndicated loan that will come in. And the last one that we picked is the fact that total expenditure has actually gone up by some 21.3 billion Ghana cedis. Let's go to the figures and look at how much government is hoping to spend in 2024.
Okay.
So the projected expenditure in 2024 is 226.7 billion Ghana cedis. We are hoping to raise revenues and grants 176.4 billion cedis. If you do the math, this leaves a difference of 50.3 billion Ghana cedis. And Kojo, if I talk about total expenditure, this excludes arrears payment or clearance. If you include arrears clearance, you see that our deficits will move from that 50.3 billion to over 61 billion Ghana
Exactly,
cedis.
because most of the papers are reporting
Exactly, 61 billion. That's if you include arrears clearance.
Okay.
In 2024. Now, if you also look at where our revenues will come from in 2024, it's important to note where our revenues will come from. So, the revenue of 176.4 billion Ghana cedis, we are expecting that some 135.9 billion will come from taxes, and non-tax revenue is supposed to be around 14.8. So just see the difference between the tax revenue and other revenue sources. So you have you want to raise 176.6 billion, and you are expecting 135.9 to come from taxes. That's over 77%, right? So 77% of our projected revenue in 2024
from
is
taxes.
supposed to come from taxes.
So if people don't pay taxes, then we are doomed.
That's exactly what is happening in 2023 when we hinged most of our revenue collection on taxes. And we've seen the e-levy not performing well, and the target that we set for ourselves, we are way below that target. Non-tax revenue is supposed to contribute close to some $15 billion to the economy in 2024 in terms of revenue.
So this is dollars.
In cedis.
Cedis, right?
Cedis,
So
yes.
14 billion. 14
close to 15 billion cedis.
Cedis, okay.
In 2024. Oil revenue is also around the same place, 15 billion. Grants is around 3.12 billion Ghana cedis, and other sources is supposed to be around 7.56 billion. Now, this is important. Government expenditure of 226.68 billion Ghana cedis. Where is this expenditure going into? So let's go into the expenditure line items. Compensation of employees, which Kojo includes wages and salaries, in 2024 is estimated at 63.68 billion Ghana cedis. That's way higher than what was actually projected in 2023.
Okay. I mean every day
Yes.
they've increased the base pay by
Base
some
pay, exactly.
23%.
That is why if you listen to the conversations around how that 23 up to 25% base pay increment came about, you appreciate why possibly the finance ministry could not stretch the increment above 50%. Because if you listen to them, they say it got to a point, it took the finance minister to come and spread the data and show them that, look, if we go beyond this threshold, we'll be in trouble. That's why even in the addition out of that 25% increment, they say, let's start, guys. The first half, you get 23. And then the second half, you get additional 2%, making a total of 25% in the whole of 2024. So compensation of employees taking a huge chunk
63.68 billion.
That's very huge. Now, we've not spoken about this. Remember that we've done DDEP, which is supposed to give us some fiscal breathing space and give us some relief in the domestic debt financing. So we've done DDP, we've trimmed most of our debt, and then we have the fiscal space not to be doing debt servicing in 2024. At both domestic and external levels, in 2024, we are still budgeting that we are going to spend close to 56 billion Ghana cedis on interest payments. If I should use just $1 to 10 cedis, Kojo, that's around, let's say, $6 billion. So $6 billion of what we will generate in 2024 will go into the servicing of loans, interest on loan. No, we are not even talking about the principal or itself. The amortization. I don't know if we are going to go ahead to pay this, but it's in the budget and it's been written as 55.9 billion Ghana cedis. So if you look at the line items in terms of the expenditure, two line items will catch your attention. And always they do.
Salaries and interest on loans.
Interest on loans. Capital expenditure is an election year. Government will be hoping to do more hospitals, roads, schools, and other infrastructure projects. It's estimated around 29 billion Ghana cedis. If you convert it to dollars using the $1 to 10 cedis, somewhere around $3 billion.
But is this enough for the sort of infrastructure they want?
People are even saying it's too much.
Too much. Oh, okay.
Because you ask yourself, do you have that fiscal space to actually accommodate this 28.72 billion?
But I'm sure they've done all the computations to arrive at all of these. So.
Yes. So you are hoping that revenues will crystallize.
Yeah.
Coming into 2023, we're hoping that we'll cash out from the oil market. Then we got into 2023 and realized that a barrel was selling at around $75. It was good and bad in the same sense. Good in the way that it did not put pressure on our dollars, okay, our exchange rate, our cedi. Then bad in the sense that government could not raise more because crude oil was not selling above 100. It means that you sell more, but you get less.
So that's why they reviewed the revenue targets.
And even if you look at the summary sheet, the summary data that the Bank of Ghana released, you watch and you realize that revenue or total exports in the first 8 months of 2023 declined by some $1 billion. We're not even talking about cedis, Kojo. $1 billion. If you compare to the same period in 2022. There was a decline of $1 billion. And this is the time that we need Forex, dollars. And you have your total export decline by, we don't get all of it as profit or as revenue anyway. But the more we export, the more we also
get foreign exchange.
Exactly, in terms of profit and revenue there. So that's how the figures is looking at. We've spoken about how we are going to stabilize the cedi in 2024. We are going to focus it on the IMF supported program, the disbursement that we'll get from the IMF, and then also expected inflow from the cocoa syndicated loan, which Cocoa Board is estimating is around 1.2 billion. 800 million is supposed to come from syndicated loans, and other sources will contribute about 400 million. So total, Cocoa Board is expecting some 1.2 billion into the 2023-2024 planting or cocoa season. There's also, we are also looking towards looking up to the second tranche of the IMF loan, which is currently conditioned on our ability to get that required financing assurance from our external creditors. We are hoping to also cash in from the mining inflows and also the continuation of the gold for oil deal. Government still sees this program as one viable means where they can raise or actually save ourselves some forex in 2024. We know of the 8 tax reliefs that have been introduced. We've spoken about some, the VAT, the 0% VAT on sanitary pads, the waivers on import duties on imports of electric vehicles for public transportation for a period of 8 years, and there are others.
Okay, but let me bring in our guest now, and then we'll come back to some of the things that we know here. Let me start with you, Dr. Ayamga. So yesterday we spoke before the budget. First, how is your impression about the budget? Because you had some expectations ahead of it. Now it's been delivered. So what do you make of what was presented?
Yes, good morning to our viewers. I outlined what I expected to see in the budget. That was something that was going to boost domestic production by way of significant reorientation of our taxes. And you saw the minister attempt to do that. But as usual, a typical Honorable Keno Furiata was at his tricks again. He eventually listed old taxes and then introduced new ones and sent all the analysts and the financial experts on a frenzy, all of them trying to discuss the introduction of new tax waivers, which in reality are old tax relief that already existed. That had no impact on the economy. And you come to introduce new taxes. So I thought that yesterday, yes, he presented the budget, but he was very cunning in the way he handled the tax regime. The gang of 3 taxes, which is the e-levy, the communication tax, and also what the COVID-19 levy that we expected them to go. They are still in there. So you do not say the finance minister has given us tax waivers. Let's go to them and let me highlight.
We'll go there, but can you clarify this for me? You mentioned that there was some introduction of taxes that financial analysts, that eluded financial analysts. Is that what you said?
Like this, most of the financial analysts were jumping that there are new tax reliefs. But I will just say the first one is extend the VAT or exemption on locally manufactured African fabrics. It's an extension, so it's a tax that is already there.
No, Doc, I want to follow you well, so that
yes, exactly.
so that I can. So are you saying there were new taxes or there wasn't?
There were new taxes, but no tax reliefs in reality. If you look at the mix of the 8 that he has listed. For example, the first one is to extend the existing VAT, which is listed as a new tax relief, when in reality it's already existing and you want to extend it. Do we count that as a tax relief? You are looking at also to waive import duties on electric vehicles. And if you want to analyze the impact of taxes, you are looking at the tax relief, the pathway to, let's say, the manufacturing or the production sectors, all the way down to the table, where the bread and butter issues are paramount. You look at the tax relief that the Honorable Minister mentioned, and you can see them actually being the crippling taxes that are crippling businesses and leading to a decline in our production and, for that matter, our export. Okay. When I spoke here yesterday, I said one of the taxes we want to see go, for example, will be the e-levy, which has been underperforming, crippling businesses, actually taking us backwards in terms of the progress we have made in digital financial inclusion. It more or less destroys more than it creates. So many of us expected it to go. We also mentioned the fact that utilities in particular were something that was crippling businesses. And if you wanted to revamp local production, the cost of business was something we needed to look at. We didn't see anything on that. And also issues of cost of credit. That also didn't feature. So if you look at these three things going forward, you've seen tax relief that have created a frenzy, and we are all talking about them. But in reality, they don't actually bring anything. Talk about electric vehicles. I was asking, how does that actually impact on the business of my good friend Colin Sam at Ogosu Okrai? Maybe it's the honorable minister and his friends who would want to drive Teslas, and they are creating tax waivers for them. How many electric vehicles we have in Ghana? What is going to be the business impact on that? You are telling businesses that if you want to now exist and do business, start importing electric vehicles or go to hell. That is the typical statement here. And I don't think that we should be celebrating electric taxes as a key environmental step. Because we are here destroying mining, we haven't been able to handle that. Up north here, the forest is being depleted, rosewoods. If you go to the savannah regions and the rest, our forests are being degraded. And we should be tackling these things, not giving cosmetic tax reliefs in the name of electric vehicles.
But Doc, the world today is fighting what we all call climate change. And we've identified that, electric vehicles are probably the future. So if a government brings a tax that will encourage the importation and usage of those vehicles, is that not a step in the right direction of promoting, safeguarding the environment and the climate?
Yeah, I think it is taking a painkiller for malaria instead of artesunate. That is the issue here. We can address our key climate issues, which has to do with the impact of illegal mining and also deforestation. That is what we ought to address. And you didn't see any significant budgetary commitments to curb this. And you go talking about electric vehicles that you can actually count. And something you are now telling us that we have to start importing those ones. We are talking about alleviating hardship on people here. And that is why I call this budget a break the poor budget. Because it is electric vehicles is a long shot. I'm talking about the young person who was sitting there and thinking of how that is going to impact on the ball of cake he wants to buy. Okay. And you can look at all the taxes. There is no pathway to helping small businesses. Those farmers that now have to deal with input credit because the planting for food and jobs is virtually over. The introduction of the second phase, which replaced input subsidies with the so-called smart input credit, was actually the launch of the end of the planting for food and jobs project. So living in an area that is an agricultural community where the farmers have been disempowered in the sense that they've been made to depend on inputs and materials that are out of their reach, now have to take credit for them. And you realize that per the release we saw yesterday, I didn't see the reintroduction of agricultural subsidies directly. I want to see subsidies instead of credit because people can't even afford simple seeds, let alone go to take credit. In the past, we were struggling in the agricultural sector because of the fear of indebtedness that many farmers have and don't normally go in for loans. Now, turning our agricultural subsidy program into a credit program is already going to have a significant impact. So, from where I sit, the mix of taxes that were presented yesterday were actually pandering to the interests of the rich. Number one, the gains in terms of the sanitary part tax. Are we going forward or are we going back? I remember in 2015, we were talking about free sanitary pads, free. And I actually support that initiative because we did a randomized control trial. So we realized that sanitary pads had significant impact on school performance. And we wanted to get there. To give that tax relief, that's gesture, as a tax relief on locally manufactured sanitary pads, doesn't actually make them accessible. They benefit monthly to the individual person that is buying sanitary pads. It's very marginal that we shouldn't sit here talking about that. I wanted to see concrete steps that will reduce the cost of businesses, boost domestic production, decrease the cost of living, which is the key issue here. And if you look at the budget inside out, they are not there, and we are going on a frenzy discussing 8 budgetary reliefs that are loosely connected to the day-to-day activities in the economy. That is my disappointment with the budget, please.
Israel, who is following us from Techiman, says, can Dr. Yamga please help me understand the new taxes that were introduced? Can you list them for me? So that's from Israel. Doc, can you do it briefly so I move on to Charles Nyaba?
Yeah, new tax reliefs were actually taxes that reliefs that already existed. And I said, one, is said to extend VAT on locally manufactured African prints. So it was already it's being extended. And I said the waiver on importation of electronic vehicles didn't actually address the key problems in our economy.
Okay, so it means that yours is about reliefs, not new taxes per se.
Yes, and also you see the so-called conversion of the 50% VAT to a 5% flat rate on commercial properties. Again, you are talking of properties here. We want to look at just the direct inputs that go into production and services. So I said, yes, there are tax reliefs that actually do nothing to change the plight of a businessman. And I want to ask the question, if he was a businessman listening to the finance minister yesterday, hoping for a relief that will reduce his cost of business, enhance his competitiveness, will he go away saying that my problems were addressed and I'm made better off? The answer is a big no to every business person, and I think that we have a problem going forward.
Okay, let me bring in Charles Nyaba here. Charles, you work with farmers, and the minister said they are going to remove certain taxes on the importation of raw materials for agricultural sector and also agric inputs. Did the budget meet your expectation? What's your take on the budget itself?
Okay, thanks so much. I think on the tax exemptions on agro inputs, farm machineries, seeds, and then medications, it's an issue that we keep engaging the ministry, both the Ministry of Food and Agric and Ministry of Finance. I think we met the Ministry of Finance 3 times, including the minister himself, on that particular issue. If you remember, last year, this time around, most poultry farmers have to actually close down their operations because they could not procure raw materials. And it's around this time, our then minister created the Planting for Food and Job Market at the headquarters of Ministry of Food and Agric to show that food prices were cheap, when in reality, there was nothing to show. All that was due to cost of production. And the inflation, the food price inflation that we experienced in the middle of the year and last year, or just cost push inflation. And all was attributed to government taking that waiver that we used to benefit from import duties when you are bringing your agro inputs. So last year, for instance, those who were bringing farm machineries like tractors, the price more than double, fertilizer price double, seeds price double, medication double. So cost of production actually double. And that affected the efficient application of those inputs in farming, leading to low supply. So for us, government bringing that waiver back is something that we are very happy of, because we've already engaged them and made them to understand that it wasn't a good decision that was taken, and it was leading to decrease in food production and supply. So on that score, I want to commend the ministry for doing that. The second one that I'm actually waiting to see is the 220 million Ghana cedis to the flood victims of Akusumbo split. We've been calling for that. I'm only concerned of how the resource is going to be distributed among the flood victims. Because in the past, we had experience of similar interventions which end up not actually benefiting the victims. The other component on the point 29, where he's talking about restoration of a true Minister of Food and Agriculture to allocate additional resources to restore livelihoods of flood victims. I'm a bit concerned because if you say you allocate resources, how much? At the end of the day, if nothing goes, how can we hold you on? So if you just make a statement that we are working with Minister of Food and Agriculture to allocate resources to restore victims of the flood victim, we think that is too vague, and then we're expecting to see the specifics.
Okay.
Now, when you come to PFJ Phase 2 itself, I think my brother actually threw more light on that. If you look at it, there is no specific allocation to PFJ Phase 2. Okay, government is going to facilitate credit for aggregators to be able to procure seeds, fertilizer for farmers. And then when they finish, a lot of engagement is gone into that, but we are yet to see the actual implementation and how government investment is going into that. Okay. But if you look at the whole arrangement, it means that government is only going to play a facilitation role. And that is also something we are concerned about. Now, you look at fiscal investment on capital expenditure, which is about 3 billion. One would have expected that, given the crucial role of agriculture sector, we would have seen some significant investment in that area. If you talk of irrigation, I have not heard anything mentioned about irrigation. I know because of climate change, these days we cannot continue to rely on rainfall. Last 3 years, the government launched the construction of portable multipurpose dam. And we all know the importance of that dam and how the flooding of a Bagri Dam is causing disaster in the north. That dam was actually going to be in place to address those issues. So I was expecting to see at least some allocation to address that.
Okay.
But that didn't also happen. We were expecting to see allocation to address mechanization challenges. We keep talking about encouraging the youth to go into farming. There is no youth who want to go and be using hoe and cutlass to weed. Okay? Youth want to see how we mechanize agri so that they will take advantage and go and produce. There's no intervention in the budget that shows that we are going to encourage mechanization of agriculture. And that's also another area that we are concerned about. Apart from that, I think we are waiting to get a detailed budget to see the specific allocation that is going to agriculture sector, because we think agriculture is the engine of the economy. And if we don't prioritize investment in agriculture, we will still end up at where we were at the early part of the year.
So it means that whilst you're happy about some of these exemptions, there was still more that the minister or government could do. Now, in absence of that, how do we get around the issues involving agriculture? For example, you've stated that you wanted to hear more about Palugu Dam and all of those. Is there any other alternative government could use to ensure these things are being provided for?
Yeah, so we talk of climate change. You see, you cannot talk of addressing climate change by giving tax exemption to electric vehicles without talking about real investment in irrigation. Okay? If you take from a Volta Oti river, if we were to create smaller dams along that catchment areas, where even if the Akusumbo Dam is overflown, the water will run into that. We will make good use of that during the dry season. That was not done. You go to other parts of the country, northern part, for instance, you see the young people now drilling boreholes and then buying their own water pumps and using to produce vegetable supply to all of us. We have engaged the Ministry of Finance with the tomatoes importers and the producers. And we told them clearly what we can do to ensure that we don't need to depend on Burkina Faso and Niger for vegetables like tomatoes and onions. And we gave them simple tools that we need to do that. We just need some mechanized boreholes, water pumps, with some small drip irrigation facilities. And the excess of 178,000 metric tons of onions that we have to always import from Mali and Niger.
Okay, no.
We can produce more than that, and that's going to boost the economy. So we are thinking that in the absence of huge capital investment on large irrigation facilities like the Polgo Dam, there's a way for us to still support the youth with these mechanized boreholes, with water pumps, with just simple drip irrigation facilities. And they'll be able to continue to produce the same commodities that we have to import from our neighboring countries. And we have been engaging them for that, and we just hope that there will still be another window that provision will be made to address those issues.
Well, a lot more people to have spoken about importation of farm produce. So, for example, rice and what have you. They wanted to hear more of, say, a restriction on a certain percentage of importations. Was it one of the expectations that you had? And when you didn't hear that, how did it come across to you?
Yeah, so actually, that's the areas we were expecting, and we keep telling the government that those are low-hanging fruits if you're looking at revenue generation, okay? Because if you have your farmers who have potential to produce these commodities here, and we are willing, but our competitors are hugely subsidized and supported, and you allow them to compete with us. There's no way we are going to be able to grow or compete with them. Okay, so for rice and poultry, to be specific, I was expecting to actually see imposing more taxes on those commodities. People always say that if you impose taxes on rice, prices will go up. I don't see it like that. Once you increase taxes on rice and poultry, and then the revenue generated is invested on the rice farmers or poultry farmers, we'll be able to compete them. Look, we have a number of people who went into rice farming. When government in 2019 announced that they want Ghana to become self-sufficient in rice production and that they were going to do investment in rice. People went there, used their own resources to clear the land, do the cultivation. When it came to harvesting, it became a problem. Me, myself, my 100 acres of rice last 2 years got burned in Yagba because it was ready for harvesting. I didn't have access to combined harvester.
Wow.
Okay, so if government were to look at those areas and rather increase taxes and revenue generated, you push it into domestic production. Even though in the very short run, there might be increase in cost of imported rice. But in the medium to long term, you see that there will be stability and the farmers will be able to produce more, will generate more jobs for the youth and become self-sustainable. But usually those areas are not what government is interested in.
Those taxes would have made the local farmers compete with the imported ones, right? That's your argument. Because the taxes would increase the cost of imported rice, while the local rice will still be at the same price. Then there could be some fair competition.
You are right.
Okay.
You are right. And apart from that, that's what I said. Apart from that, it's also boosting domestic production and creating jobs. Okay?
Yeah.
And then also releasing pressure on the currency because we don't need to go and change dollars to import rice and poultry.
Okay. Dr. Hamza, let me bring you in here. So, I mean, if you listen to Charles, there should be more done in the agricultural sector. Now the budget has been presented. What can government do to try and find means of correcting the aftermath, the ones that they were supposed to touch on but they couldn't touch on?
Yeah, I think that I expected Charles to go on the day-to-day issues that concern farmers and knowing, and I think that he's done a lot of justice to that. What I think government should focus on is pursuing the agenda of import substitution when it comes to the rice industry. There is no doubt that the rice lobby in Ghana is a very strong group. It has far-reaching influence on policy. And I remember some time back when they introduced some restrictions within a matter of weeks, it was taken off. And that is, we don't have to overlook the influence of rice importers in the country here. We also have to look at the implications of the taxes on our international standards. We are in a free a world where trade is regulated by WTO conventions. And when we want to impose import duties, we should expect some reciprocity from the other countries. So we need to adopt some clear tactics when it gets to this. I have always maintained that there is no reason why if a poultry 1 month old should be entering Ghana. I mean, it is strange that sometimes the poultry we eat here are 5, 6 months old and you don't even know their state. So we could use some of these safety requirements to more or less control the importation of these things, and it will increase the cost, because if you have to slaughter a fowl in the UK today and get it here within a week, you have to fly it. That is going to increase its cost, and we are still within the conventions, and that is what the West is doing to us. Our pineapple, our and the rest. Nobody tells us not to bring mango, not to bring pineapple. They only impose certain rigorous standards that our farmers and our technology cannot cope with. And by so doing, you have all the investments in the industry here, right from the integrated amount of food companies to the thousands of mango outgrowers folding up and cutting the mango trees down again to replant these, because the promise of export is not coming. So I agree with Charles. We also have to put in some standards in terms of the quality of rice and the caliber of rice that enters here. From the nutrition and food security perspective, we can't impose these things on our life, and it will bring costs onto anyone who wants to import them in this country. And that will give our farmers some relief. I often don't want to go on the line that we have to impose taxes, because when we do, they will also impose taxes back on us, and we're going to have some issues to deal with. But there are key techniques and tools available to us that we can use to create this competitive edge for our businesses. Yes, I wanted to see some massive investment, especially in favor of smallholder farmers, because these group of people are missing within the tax relief for importation of agricultural inputs. And sometimes the price transmission mechanisms mean that at the end of the day, they get very little from these tax reliefs. So again, we have to look at that critically. Government trying to wash its hands off the provision of inputs directly and facilitating suppliers may only end up enriching some few people. And I need not say that in 2016 there was already an input subsidy program that was working seamlessly well until the Planning for Food and Jobs came in, brought it, and people who should be having oversight responsibility on the distribution became suppliers and we have problems. So I think that we need to see some incentives that will boost production, provide some farmers directly, and that also we use some regulations in terms of safety and food standards to tighten the cost of importation so that we can give some space. Yeah.
Doc Michael Ayamda, I'm grateful to you for joining us, sir.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure talking to you.
He is a development economist and senior lecturer at UDS. Mr. Charles Nyaba, I'm grateful to you that you joined us here on the discussion. Hoping that next time we'll engage and see the way forward as well, especially in developing agriculture. Charles Nyaba is the Director of Programs at the Peasant Farmers Association of Ghana. Kofi, so, I mean, let's wrap up with the little that we were supposed to.
They were talking about rice anyway. It's interesting because, I mean, it's some of these things that put a lot of pressure on our currency.
Yeah.
And whilst they were speaking, I tried to look at our repository and see if we can say anything about rice. So Ghana, for instance, we are the 13th largest importer of rice in the whole world.
Wow, 13th.
Rice was the third most imported product in Ghana in 2021. And if you look at some of the sources that the countries that we import rice from, so every year we give China some $394 million. 2021, we gave them $394 million just because of rice importation. Thailand took $53.3 million. India, $50.9 million. China, $21.7 million. and Pakistan 21.
So China started at 300 and something. We give
yes,
them
yes,
another.
yes, yes. Look at the difference between China and even Vietnam, and Thailand. So Vietnam is at $394 million.
Oh, so Vietnam took 300.
Yes, that's the first.
Vietnam rice.
Yes, the country that we import the most from, followed by Thailand 53, India 50, China 21,
Wow.
and Pakistan is some 21. And 2022, the finance minister indicated that if you look at our import bill, which exceeded $10 billion, some of the products that actually contributed to this, they were rice, iron, steel, aluminium, sugar, poultry that they spoke about, oil palm, cement, and fertilizer.
Okay.
These are things that we can actually do them here.
Exactly. For example, rice. The rice value chain.
Yes.
I know how it is.
Yes.
If government will try and cut, look, we spend more than 300 million to a country just to import rice.
That's one country.
Imagine if you give it to farmers in Ghana.
Yeah.
The jobs we will create.
Yeah.
Oh no. Government should be deliberate like Nigeria did on this rice thing.
Of course.
Because we are pushing too much money to
Have you
people.
checked the inflation figures? Local rice. Do you see the inflation? More than 50%.
Look, government, please, in all honesty, we should be ambitious and deliberate about supporting the local rice farmers, because that is how we can really create jobs. We are battling unemployment, aren't we? So push more money into local farmers to create jobs, give more money to poultry farmers, create jobs. That's how we fight unemployment. We cannot continue to send millions of dollars every year to foreign countries to empower their farmers, empower their economy, and stifle ours. I don't know what else do we need to do before. Because of individual importers of rice, can't we speak to them to say, buy your rice from the local farmers, because that is how we can create entrepreneurs and billionaires in this economy? It's just not fair.
But I think you need to calm down.
No, I've calmed down, but I think that we've been playing with this for too long a time.
Throwing more dollars away.
Every year, when we can really give money to farmers here in Ghana. Well, we'll take a break here. We'll be back with more. Stay on.